Ciao, everyone, and welcome back to Experience Italy with Friends. Today's episode is all about La Primavera, spring in Italy. We'll discuss what Italy has to offer visitors during these months, including the weather and typical spring foods, important holidays and key events, as well as cultural traditions. It's a fun and energizing season, and we can't wait to talk about it. Let's get started. Andiamo! Experience Italy with Friends is a travel and lifestyle podcast where we will explore our favorite destinations and hidden gems, share key travel tips and cultural insights, and provide real-time updates about our move to this remarkable country. Join me, Tanya Razzo, an Italian travel expert and founder of Amici Vacations, and my Italian husband and producer, Davide Razzo, on a journey that is sure to inspire you and prepare you to create immersive and authentic experiences of your own in the beautiful country of Italy. Hello again, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode. I'm your host, Tanya, and I'm here with my husband, co-host, and producer, Davide.
Ciao a tutti, amici.
We decided this week's episode should focus on spring.
La Primavera.
We've naturally been mentioning it a bit in our past couple of episodes, but we thought it deserved some attention on its own. Signs of it are everywhere we look, and we can't help be excited about the changing landscape and longer days. I mean, sunset is now at 8 p.m. Can you believe it, Davide?
Oh, yeah. I'm welcoming that. I love that.
It's so nice. It's the best part about spring and summer. So we debated waiting until the season was over so we could share more of our recent personal experiences here. But we decided that it would be better to share what lies ahead so that anyone who is going to be coming to Italy before June can be informed about what's going on.
Well, sounds like a great plan. But as usual, before we dive into today's episode, let's talk about our lives here in Italy and give them an update.
Yes, let's give an update. And while we always say it was a busy 2 weeks, as if it's unusual and that the next 2 weeks will somehow slow down, it never does.
I know. It never slows down. It never, there's always something going on here. So, which is good, right? So, anyway, let's first update. Property search update. So, we went to see a couple of properties also last week and 2 weeks ago, and we had one as a contender. And we went to go and to see it for a second time.
Yeah, I was so excited to see it. And I was really thinking it could be it. It's near a town called Acquaviva, which is about 10 minutes away from Montepulciano. And the views there were amazing.
It was right at the edge of town, right?
Yeah, we could
5 minutes walk into the main street.
It had a large house, a little bit maybe bigger than we needed.
Yeah.
Also a little guest house. And a chicken coop, so we could raise chickens.
Yeah, so...
And even a little bit of land that we could have a pool someday. And so we were all excited. And then we toured it again. And it seemed more and more that there was, well, this room we could do this to it. And this room we could do that to it. Yeah. And we saw some things needed to be renovated and repaired. And
all of a sudden we saw in every room change. And so that's when we kind of decided.
Well, we saw 5 to 10 years of projects ahead of us. And we just left a life in the U.S. of project after project. So, God, I mean, as much as we dreamed about it, it just seemed like we're not ready to have that big of a commitment to a property anymore. And so now we're kind of rethinking it, and maybe an apartment or a smaller home might work for us.
Yeah, we just need to make us think again. Like, do we really want this house and with a larger land and do some work in the land and all that? I don't know.
Well, I had to laugh that we talked about having a pool and we told that to our son. Within 10 seconds, his first response was, "Who's taking care of it? Poppy won't."
Well, I could say the same about the chicken coop. So
Maybe.
Who's going to clean that?
Anyway, it sounded fun, but we need to continue to find our perfect place.
All right. Okay, so next update, Tanya.
Well, we guest starred in a video. We are on our way to fame.
Wow, we're going to be famous, Hollywood famous?
I don't know. Let's not go that far. But just to fill everybody in, back in February, We were guest speakers on the podcast called A New Life in Italy, hosted by Smart Move Italy, the company we worked with to move over here. And they also have a YouTube channel, and they create videos that share stories of some of their clients that made the move here. And they asked us if we were game to host them in Montepulciano and show them around and tell them our story. And we said, well, I guess why not?
Yeah.
So they said they wanted some insight into our daily routine, like the cafes we go to, where we shop, get our hair done, etc. But we had another idea. So we were at another wine dinner.
Yeah. So we went to Cortona. We were again invited by our friend from Leberne, Federico, to participate in this dinner. And there were other 5 producers there to introduce their wines.
Yeah, including De Ricci, another one of our connections.
The Ricci winery, yeah.
And so when I saw them, I looked at you at the dinner table and I'm like, Davide, hey, maybe we should bring the video crew to Leberne and De Ricci. Like, what do you think? Do you think they'll be game for it? And we went over and asked them and they're like, yeah. Absolutely. Let's do it.
Our short notice too. I mean, it was Friday we asked and Monday was the shoot. So
so we showed up on Monday with the crew. They had a drone and, videoing the farm and the vineyards. And I thought they did an awesome job, both Federico and Nicolo. And I'm excited to share their wineries with you and their family stories. But oh my gosh, they filmed so much footage. I think it's going to take them months to get through it.
I know. So their videos were like 10 to 15 minutes. I think the longest one was like 25 minutes. And I do believe they have like 4 to 6 hours of material,
if not more.
Yeah. So I asked him, I don't want to be the editor of this, but don't you guys have a little bit too much material? And he said, no, I think we're going to do 3 things out of this. Oh, okay. So I think they just say that they want to do our introduction video, and then they want to do a food portion of it, and then, of course, the wine and Montepulciano itself. So, yeah.
Well, it was a lot of fun. I don't know that I have being an actress in my near future, but I enjoyed showcasing our wonderful new town and some of our friends. So I'm looking forward to see what comes of it.
Yeah, me too. So, next update, we had to go back to Calabria.
Another 7-hour drive down and another 7-hour drive back. And wow. So we had to go because for 7 months, we've known we've had this appointment with the Questura to have my Carta di Soggiorno interview.
Yeah.
So it's been on the calendar. We thought we had everything in order. We get there at 8:30 for our 8:50 appointment.
Yep.
They called us to the desk at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
So that's Italy. And we're all excited. We're like, okay, it's our turn. Here's our documents. First question. So when did you arrive? Well, you see, it's on the application. Well, no, but didn't you announce yourself? Well, we were here.
We were here and they told us to go to the post office.
So we did. But then they're wanting to see documentation of our flight, see our passport stamp when we were in Paris. And I don't know, a little bit strange. And then we're continuing. And then they wanted to see our marriage certificate. Like, well, okay, we showed this months ago to get the residency, and it's been on file here for 25 years.
Yeah.
Nope, we need to see it. Okay, well, here it is. And it's in Italian. Nope, but it's not the official one from here.
They need a certified one from the town.
Okay, so we've got that. Then they had questions about the residency itself, the home. And we're like, well, we've done this in the fall too. Well, nope, not this way. So long story short, we did get my fingers fingerprinted, and I think the process is continuing. Had to show up with a couple more documents, but oh my goodness.
I went to the city hall and requested a certification of our marriage license and also about the residence. And they told me, why do they send you here? They have access to our files here at the Questura. And I said, it's just to kind of like inconvenience us. That's all.
So anyway, for those moving here and going through this process and want to know how it is, just another example of the frustrating bureaucracy in Italy. So look forward to it, and hopefully we're done now and we can move forward.
Yeah, that's Italy for you. So
Okay, so next in this 2 weeks, we get home immediately. We repack our suitcase. We head to Florence, where we met up with our friends from the U.S., the Palmers and the Lubanow. So a quick shout out to them. They had been traveling around Italy a little bit, but we met up in Florence for the evening. And then we took them to the Chianti region and Colli Senesi for some wine tasting and a quick visit to San Gimignano. Unfortunately, it rained, but we had a good time and came home with 12 more bottles of wine, I might say.
yeah, there was a lot of driving for me that day, and in a van. And actually, I was surprised I was doing really good about it. But I couldn't do that every day.
No, and oh my gosh, I would get so dizzy. That area is so hilly and constant roundy turns. And I think a couple of times I had to like face forward and like stare at the trees just to like not get nauseous. Okay, so then to round up, we had, some clients here in Montepulciano, and we were able to meet up for a coffee with them. And that's so fun now. Again, I mentioned this before. Like, I love being able to meet up with clients and be a part of their trip. And so a shout out to the Mahar family that's here for the week. And
very nice family.
Yep. So that was fun. And I had a new client meeting with a client this week that is an avid listener to our podcast, she said. So I said I would do a quick shout out to Yvette. So hi, Yvette.
Okay. Last update.
Okay. Well, drum roll. I finally got my hair cut and colored.
Hallelujah.
I mean, it's been 7 months, people. I think this is the longest I've gone without getting my hair done. And it's not for lack of opportunity. I mean, they do have hair salons here, but I think of all the different changes going on with us, I have been most fearful to walk into a salon and attempt to get hair cut and colored and not speak the language. But I said, we're here in Montepulciano. I need to tackle this last step of being a resident. Need a hairdresser. So
I had faith in her. So we met her. She was recommended by friends, and we went in there. And then I asked her in Italian, do you speak any English at all? Nope. No. Mi dispiace. Okay. No problem. She speaks Italian, my wife. So good luck.
Well, I don't speak hair lingo in Italian, but Google Translate does. So
all right. That's how you communicated, huh?
I managed. And so we got through it, and I now have refreshed hair finally. So
you look fantastic.
Too bad it wasn't before the video. Okay.
All right. So that's our update. Let's shift to this week's episode, Tanya. Let's talk about La Primavera.
Yes, let's. I mean, who doesn't get excited for spring after a long, dreary winter? And to clarify, we're going to cover the months of March, April, and May. And while that may seem obvious because that is the official spring season, that is not the case where we are from in the US, from Minnesota. I mean, often spring is just the month of May. And even then, there can be a snowstorm.
Like I said, there's only 2 seasons in Minnesota, winter and construction season.
Very true. But here we have 4 seasons. And I always said, I want to live in a place that has 4 seasons. And, Minnesota had that, but I would say, I just wish the seasons would stick to their prescribed months. And I have to say, Tuscany pretty much delivers that. And it's so wonderful. So, March 21st hit and spring was here. And actually, I had to go back into my Insta stories. And my first post about spring was March 10th. So it even jumped the gun a little, and the fruit trees were blooming. And in Minnesota, that never happened till mid or late May. And we were lucky to get tulips blooming by Mother's Day. So this has been a treat. The days are longer, and it's so pretty to see the country awaken from winter. So, let's go into the weather more and talk about what's going on here in Italy in spring from a weather point of view. And we've talked about this in a couple of our previous episodes. The weather is a little fickle in spring, as in most parts of the world. So one day it's sunny and warm and feels like summer. The next it's rainy and cold and we're back in winter. And again, here in Italy, it's a damp, wet cold because it's so humid. Like it gets in your bones, doesn't it, Davide?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a couple of weeks ago I said it. It's a different cold here, and it's just feels different. It's maybe like a San Francisco cold.
Yeah, and so you got to be prepared for the constant changing of warm and cold. And the weird thing is that in either extreme, the actual temperature isn't much different. It really all depends on if the sun is out. Mm-hmm. And if it is, you're hot and you're probably peeling off your layers and sweating. And as soon as it goes behind a cloud or comes down, you're putting all your layers back on. So you just need to come prepared. Bring lots of light layers, bring a raincoat, trench coat, umbrella.
Yep.
So with the weather, the trees have been budding for a few weeks, really taking off this past week. One of the things that I've started to pay attention to on my walks is the leaves on the grapevines. And so there's this vineyard I walk by the Tempo San Biagio. And I've taken a picture now once a week at least, just to start documenting what's going on. And so about 2 weeks ago, they started to sprout. But for the most part, the vineyards around here are still pretty naked.
Yeah. And now you missed a week because we were gone. So
well, I'll get out there tomorrow and take a picture.
Okay. All right.
But I do see that there are flowers growing in between the rows of the vines. There's like mustard and fava beans. And so we learned, this is part of how they do organic growing methods here is they plant mustard.
Yeah, it's the organic way to pest control.
Yep, and to provide nutrients to the soil. Yeah. So while the vines are naked, there's a lot of flowers and the vineyards look beautiful. We have a small wooded area here by our apartment, and it's really filling out. There's lots of different shades of green, and we have a new friend.
Bambi, a little deer.
Yes, we've been sitting on the balcony and looking for him every day, doing a quick run through the woods. And so, it's been wonderful. And you might ask, are we wondering, is this weather pretty consistent across the entire country? We're mostly talking about Tuscany, but, for what we've noticed, it does seem pretty consistent, at least this year, because we were in Lake Como, far north. Then we were just in Calabria, far south. And I would say, while you would expect more variation going on in the weather, it's been pretty consistent. And actually, Calabria felt a little chillier than it does here.
But the previous week, it was way hotter than here. So it changes. Like
in other parts of the world, spring is up and down, kind of wild card.
Okay, so next, let's talk about the food that grows in spring, so that we find at the fruttivendolo during the week. So what can you tell us about that, Tonya?
Well, as we've talked about before, Italy is very seasonal when it comes to its food. You'll only find produce that is in season, and you're not getting food that's been shipped from the other side of the world. And so springtime in Italy is when we start to get a new slew of fresh vegetables and fruits, and we get asparagus and artichokes and the fava beans and the peas, zucchini flowers, leeks, and strawberries. These are all very popular spring ingredients. And I have to say, I particularly love zucchini flowers, and you stuff them with ricotta.
I need to make them.
They're so good.
I know. So,
and I love leeks as well, and got you to make a risotto.
Yeah.
And love that. And I've become a new fan of the fava bean. And, I didn't really know what they were. Most of our listeners probably don't either. But I guess the most similar thing to them growing up in the U.S. is a lima bean, where it's green.
Yeah, I would say even the edamame a little bit.
Kind of. I think they look more like a lima bean in my opinion.
Okay.
But they're like this bright green. Yeah. And they look like spring, and they're great for adding into a minestrone. We've also learned that you can pair them with a pecorino romano cheese and a nice dry white wine. And I also want to say that our friends that have a food site called Due Spaghetti provided us a great recipe in their last newsletter. It's called
crostini con ricotta, fave e pecorino.
Okay, so to translate, it's basically a bruschetta with ricotta cheese. And then on top of it, you have the fava beans and some pecorino cheese. And it looked delicious. And so I think we're going to have to try that recipe. And so Cara is an excellent chef. And
Maybe they should come here. They are in Montalcino right now. So
have them come cook for us. Yes, good idea.
yeah.
As you can see, spring is an amazing time for food as well as getting outside.
Yes. Okay, so let's move on to the holidays and traditions and other key events that take place during spring. I know. Let's start in March. There's a lot to cover here. So
there is, but there's a lot of fun events. And, I really want to touch on some of the cultural aspects and how we celebrate these events, because it's been super fun for me to get to know this. And Davide, you've grown up with many of these traditions yourself with your family. So let's fill everybody in. What's the first holiday in March that we celebrate?
It's the Festa di San Giuseppe, which is it's actually a Father's Day in Italy. They celebrate San Giuseppe was Jesus'
stepfather,
I would say. And so he's celebrated as a father figure. And so all the father figures are celebrated in Italy on March 19th.
Conveniently for you, your dad's name is Giuseppe.
Yes. So, but, we do not celebrate Father's Day like in the U.S. In the U.S., it was more, let's go to breakfast and maybe go play golf and
do some grilling.
And in Italy, it's a little bit different. So they do a lot of things in Italy, like culinary things. The two things that they do that are very typical. The one is they make zeppole, which is like fried dough. And then they fill them with some custard or other
ricotta, right?
Ricotta. And then they also, in Rome, they make something similar that they call the bignè, which they fry the dough. And they also fill them then with some custard or ricotta. But the bignè, like I usually make them, I bake them. So I'm sure people choose to either fry them or bake them.
Well, they sound great. I mean, they remind me of like the beignet we had in New Orleans, but these are stuffed with some pastry cream, so I can imagine even yummy.
Yeah, it's a lot of butter in those beignets. So
okay, well, let's keep moving. Also in March, a lot of the regions and towns start to celebrate with La Festa de la Primavera, or a spring festival. And these usually take place in late March or early April, and is really kind of the official kickoff of spring. And they have either flower festivals, some music, outdoor gatherings, the parks and gardens are opening. And I want to point out, we talked about it when we were in Santa Margherita Ligure. They had their spring festival going on the weekend after we were there. And so I was sad that we couldn't stay and participate. But also, like we've noticed when we were just in Florence, the Bardini and Boboli gardens are starting to bloom, and they have rows of wisteria that are gorgeous. And our daughter mentioned last weekend that she went up to the Piazzale Michelangelo, their rose garden, and that's blooming. So a lot of fun flower events going on in March and starting to get outside.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to April. That's a huge month.
Yes, we have a lot to cover here for this month. And let's start with the Vinitaly exposition in Verona. Tell us what this event is all about.
So this year was the 57th edition of Vinitaly. It always takes place in Verona. And that's where all the wine producers in Italy are presenting their new vintage and actually doing business with a lot of people all over the world. So it's an exhibition that has been taking place for, 57 years now.
Well, it's huge. I mean, 4,000 exhibitors.
Yes. So, and some of our friends were there, like from Montepulciano, but also our friend Alfonso Aiello, who was our guest speaker on episode 12.
Yeah, he got to visit here, and unfortunately, we weren't able to connect with him.
Yeah, unfortunately, we could not meet up because of our trip to Calabria. And so we couldn't make it happen. But he's back in September. So that's when we're going to get together.
Yay. Okay, well, let's move on to Easter week. And that's this week. It's the whole week leading up to Easter, known as Settimana Santa, Holy Week. And it's filled with processions, religious rituals, and special church services across the country. And some of the most famous processions are taking place in Rome, Florence, and Sicily, where participants dress in traditional robes and they carry statues of Christ and the Virgin Mary through the streets. And, I was reminded that Castiglione Fiorentino, where we were living in November, is also known for its week of processions. So I'm tempted to scoot over there on Friday.
No, you can do that.
And take a look. But again, it just started on Sunday with Palm Sunday. Yep. And I was surprised the wineries were open. And I'm very glad they were because we needed to take our friends out. And one of the first questions I had, coming from the U.S. is, do they have like Easter egg hunts? That was a big thing for us in the U.S.
We don't have them over here.
They don't do this here, but I did read that some regions have an Easter game called Rota del Uovo, where they are rolling boiled eggs down the street, and whoever can roll theirs the furthest without breaking their egg wins. So I'm going to have to ask around and see if there's any egg rolling events going on.
Very easy to do here in Montepulciano.
That would actually be super fun. Maybe we should just boil some eggs and go try this ourselves. Okay, well, let's talk about some of the key things going on that are more famous. So, Davide, there's a couple of things going on in Rome.
Yeah, so the most known one is they do the reenactment of the Via Crucis, and that's happening on Good Friday, starting from the Colosseum, and they walk like over the 14 crosses.
Yeah, the Stations of the Cross.
Yeah, Station of the Cross. And so they'll reenact there. For some reason, so this event originally started in 1750. Saint Leonard of Porto Maurizio convinced Pope Benedict XIV to build those 14 stations of the cross inside the Colosseum, so they could save the Colosseum from being destructed.
I think that's really cool.
I know. I did not know that. So,
okay. So the next key event in Rome is actually on Holy Saturday, the night before Easter, where the Pope holds Easter midnight mass at St. Peter's Basilica from 9 o'clock until midnight. And so I think this would be a huge event to participate in. And I have to say, Rome is crazy during the week of Easter for all of these events. And now with it being the Jubilee, I can only imagine that this is probably the busiest week of the entire year. Last week and this week, all of this. And if you're wanting to participate in these events, I think it's a once in a lifetime thing to do. But know that you are not alone. You're going to be with a lot of people.
I know people have done it and they wouldn't do it again.
Yeah. But, it's like going to Times Square on New Year's Eve. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
But you want to experience it. So for some people, this is really a highlight to spend Easter in Rome. But it's not just Rome that has things going on. There's another famous event taking place here in Florence, and it is called the Scoppio del Carro, or Explosion of the Cart. And this is a This is a centuries-old tradition that involves a parade, fireworks, and a dove-shaped rocket. And what happens is this whole event takes place at 11 o'clock on Sunday, and there's a parade with musicians, and there's flag throwers, and people in medieval dress pull a large cart through the streets, and they stop in front of the Piazza del Duomo. And during Mass at the Duomo, a dove-shaped rocket is lit from the altar, and it flies along a wire to the cart, and it sets off the fireworks. If the dove's flight is smooth, legend says, it's considered a sign of good fortune and a plentiful harvest will come. So this sounds like, again, another fun event to watch, kind of a once-in-a-lifetime celebration, to participate in. But I'm scared to go battle the crowds.
Yeah.
So we won't be seeing this, but maybe I'll watch it on the news because that sounds like a fun event. So Davide, let's dive in a little further about Easter Sunday because it's coming up here and I'm excited about what we have in store. And I know we're going out for lunch that day, but tell us what Italians typically do on Easter. How do they celebrate?
Well, I can tell you about my own personal experience, right? So I remember Holy Friday was a very somber day, and we did not watch TV. We could not listen to music. That was just to respect Jesus' death. And I remember the food-wise, it was all fish-based. So either pasta with fish or a cod fish for us, a secondo. And that was it. And it was very somber. Saturday, we didn't do much. Sunday, but that was the big day. And I know that some families, they have breakfast in Italy and then a big lunch. We always had the lunch. So usually we would start with an aperitivo maybe and some appetizers, small finger food. And then we would go to have a primo, usually a homemade pasta. It's either lasagna or cannellonis or other stuffed pasta she would sometimes make. Then to the main dish, to the secondo, which that's a tradition, we had lamb.
Now, is this a leg of lamb, a rack of lamb?
It varied. Sometimes she would make braised lamb. Sometimes she would just roast it in the oven, or she would do a rack of lamb. Depended what. Sometimes she had to order it, so she did not know what she wanted to make, my mom. So, but yeah, it's different ways you can prepare it, and it always will come with either roasted potatoes or, of course, vegetables and other side dishes that she would make. Yeah.
Let's head into dessert. What kind of things can I look forward to eat? Because I've been seeing in all the pasticceria in town that there's all these chocolates and cakes, and there's one shaped like a dove. So tell us about that.
So it's called the colomba. It's a dove-shaped cake. So it's very sweet, and you will have to have some.
Well, it kind of reminds me, looking at the shape of it and also the boxes in the grocery store that are selling it, kind of like the Christmas panettone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's kind of like that. But I want to tell you guys about some of my Calabrian traditions too that I experienced. My aunt, actually, more recently, she was telling me about these pies that she would make for Easter, which was with ricotta cheese and eggs, salami in there. They call them the fraguni in Calabria. So they would make those. Also, leading up in the Holy Mass, my mom would make, and we experienced them, some cookies, Easter cookies. She made some that we would have for breakfast during the week, right? So very great. And sometimes they wrap an egg on those cookies. My mom didn't do it, but some people, they wrap a hard-boiled egg on it. So just to show that's for Easter. So
okay. Well, speaking of eggs, in the grocery store, I've been noticing these kind of massive eggs. And I mean, they look like more gifts. And so in the US, we have Easter baskets. Here, I haven't seen baskets, but I've seen these big eggs. And I think they have chocolate on the outside of it, this plastic egg. And then on the inside is a gift.
Yeah, there's a gift inside. It's the Easter egg. And the egg is a symbol in Italy, probably all over the world. Yeah, it's a symbol of renewal of life. It's the awakening of nature, and let's start up again.
Yeah, so I just thought it was great that you're in the grocery store. I mean, you just see these massive eggs in cellophane paper and grandiose, and inside is a toy. So I thought, a slightly different variation of an Easter basket, kind of fun.
Yeah. Okay. Then Easter Monday.
Another holiday.
Pasquetta. It's another holiday.
And that means?
It's Easter. Yeah, Easter Monday. Pasquetta. It's the little
little Easter.
Yes. So in Italy, it's another holiday, and people usually gather for barbecuing, to go have picnics out if it's nice. I don't think this year many people will be out because they predicted some rain on Pasquetta. So,
Well, let's hope, because then people can go picnic and enjoy all those leftovers from the day before.
okay, so actually, Pasquetta falls on the same day as Rome celebrates its birthday. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, I can, but have yet to participate in this myself, but came across this and thought, wow, another thing going on Easter week. And they're celebrating its birthday, which is to commemorate the founding of the city by Romulus in 753 BC. So they have a lot of traditional events throughout the city. They're including a trench digging ritual, reenactments of the Palili, reenactments of a ceremony honoring the agricultural goddess Pales. They have mock Colosseum gladiator battles and other nods to the epic history and its first emperor. So this is going to be a crazy week in Rome.
Oh yeah, can you imagine? Holy Week and then that
On the same day as Easter Monday.
I don't know. Good luck, you guys that are in Rome this week.
So yet another event going on this same week or coming week on April 25th is Liberation Day, also known as
Festa della Liberazione. So they're celebrating the liberation of World War II Nazi Germany. A lot of the cities here, they celebrate it with events, concerts, or parades. So
yes, actually, I was in Milan 2 years ago on April 25th when they celebrated, and they have actually a lot of demonstrations and rallies too. And so it was kind of crazy that at the Piazza del Duomo, which was already, the busiest piazza or square of Milan, they had stages set up. There was some music, but a lot of like rallies and kind of protesting to celebrate liberation.
Okay.
One other thing that is going on April 25th, again, if there isn't enough activity, is that it's the feast day of St. Mark in Venice. And so Venetians are celebrating this beloved saint with a gondolier boat race. And there's a huge party in St. Mark's Square. So a lot of things going on from Rome to Venice and Easter Monday and Liberation Day. Wow. And I have to tell you, all the Italians are going to be taking the entire week off and traveling.
You can't find anyone like, hey, can we go see a house?
Yeah, no work going on this week. It's going to be an entire week of celebrations and people traveling and hiking and visiting all over Italy. Yeah. So if you're here, be prepared that you will not be alone.
Right. But May is not that better. And it starts right on May 1st.
Another celebration day. So when I asked you about like what May 1st was, you said it was Labor Day. And I think you were saying it's a little bit different.
It's a little bit different.
How we celebrate Labor Day in the US.
Yeah. Labor Day is to actually, a lot of people are protesting. So that's why I was a little bit surprised hearing that on April 25th, they did that in Milan, which usually they do that on May 1st. A lot of demonstrations, but not just in Italy. That's Europe, in whole Europe, in Switzerland, Germany, everywhere demonstrations. So people are marching for their, usually for their rights of work rights, right? And so that's what they do, but it's a holiday.
It is. And so I think too, there's also a lot of picnics and parades I was reading about. So I think just a continuation of a week of holidays. The other thing I'm looking forward to in May here in Tuscany is for the poppies to be in bloom. And we've seen so many of these pictures and all over Tuscan calendars where the entire fields are filled with poppies. And, we've been in Italy a couple of times now in spring, but always a little bit too early and we miss poppy season.
Well, I've seen poppies today.
You did?
Yes, I did. On my way back from Asciano.
Okay.
We drove the scenic route and I saw some poppies.
Like some or a ton?
No, just some.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to the fields filled with poppies.
Yeah.
But speaking of traveling across the country and countryside, a big event in May is the Giro d'Italia, and you're a big cyclist fan.
For all the cycling lovers, the Giro d'Italia, or we call it they also call it the Tour of Italy, takes place in May. It's an event that it's over 3 weeks, and they travel all over Italy. Sometimes they also start in different countries for a couple of the stages, and then they come to Italy, and then they take off.
So will they be here in Tuscany?
They will be here in Tuscany. I have to look up the routes. I actually, back in March, I went to one of the World Classic events, the Strade Bianche, and it was really nice, but it's over within minutes. So you wait for hours, and it's over in minutes.
Well, I'd like to join you for this next one, as I think that would be really fun to participate in the Giro, since I've always seen you watch it on TV.
Yeah, because it's fun, because while you're waiting, all the sponsors are throwing goodies to you. So they'll do that. It's the caravan, and then the race comes, and you watch them fly by, and okay, let's go home now.
Okay, well, let's move on to a couple more events to cover for the month of May. First is the Sagra festivals, and these are all about celebrating local food and local food specialties. And we actually talked about one in our last episode when we were in Camogli, that they have a fish festival. And so along the coast, in many parts of Italy, they're celebrating fish, they're celebrating other types of foods. And so there's the Artichoke Festival in Ladispoli near Rome. There's a strawberry festival in Nemi, which is also south of Rome, an asparagus festival in various places. And these festivals are not just about the food, but also live music and performances and artisan markets. So if you're here during the month of May, make sure to Google and, see what kind of these Sagra festivals are going on near you. Along the same lines, in late May or early June are flower festivals. And I'm really looking forward to this because there are two main ones. And I'm not going to be able to hit this first one in Sicily. It's in Noto, but they have these carpets of flowers. Like they make these mosaics all along the streets made out of flowers. And it's a huge festival. And so Sicily has theirs May 16th through 18th this year. And in Spello, Umbria, which is not too far from here, is a similar event where they do these large flower carpets, and it's in June 21st and 22nd. And so I'm excited to make this trip over into neighboring Umbria and check out these flowers, as I've always been a huge gardener and flower fan. So I can't wait to see all of these designs.
Who says that we were not busy in spring? This is still going to be a busy spring for us too. So that was a lot, I think, and looking forward to move on to the next segment, which concludes our episode. So Tanya, do you have any tips for us?
Tips from Tanya.
Well, first, if even after listening to everything we discussed, someone still has the question of, well, is spring a good time to come to Italy?
Mm-hmm.
Let me provide some answers and some additional tips. And so first, yes, it's a great time to come to Italy for a number of reasons. One, there are a lot less crowds, with the exception of Easter week we just talked about. It's a lot less expensive. And so, I've had some clients come here now at the end of March and in April. And I have to say overall, hotel prices are 30% less than what you will see in high season. So, a great time to come from a budget standpoint. And, as I mentioned before, the tourist season officially begins April 15th or right after Easter, whichever is first. Though I have to say it's more like April 1st. So as soon as, the season starts in the spring, it's a good time to be heading over here. And, as we talked about, it's mostly warm and pleasant, which is nice compared to, again, we have really hot summers here. So if you're not into the heat and you would rather have a cooler temps, the weather's a little bit crazy and unpredictable, but for the most part, it's pleasant and a good time to come. And as we mentioned, things are blooming and it's a real true spring here. It's a great time to be visiting the cities and go to museums, which have less crowds. And, though I did hear the Vatican was already obscene last week, which again, it's near Easter, so probably not a good time to be visiting the Vatican. But just to say that, be mindful of Easter week as everywhere is going to be crowded. And museums are actually open on Easter Sunday with the exception of the Vatican. But many small restaurants and shops will be closed because they're out celebrating and traveling during Easter week. So be aware of that. Water activities are really not going to be happening if you're here in the spring, but it's a great time to go hiking and you can do some boating for sightseeing purposes if you're bundled up. And, the beach places are shut down until probably late May. And so that would be a great time to go. And you'll be able to get there before there's like the high season and they're really busy and crazy. My second tip is completely unrelated to our spring topic, but I wanted to share because I feel like I've encountered this at least 2 or 3 times now in talking with friends and clients, that there's a little confusion at the train station. And so I always mentioned, and I think in our Getting Around Italy episode too, that the departure boards at train stations are very similar to the departure boards at airplanes, the airports.
Big difference though.
But you're looking for usually the time and your like flight number or your train number. But a key difference between trains and airplanes is that the destination is different. And so if you're looking at the train station board, do not look for your destination of where you are going because it may not be the final destination of where the train is going. And so, for example, I had friends in Milan and there's like, where is our train to Florence? And I'm like, well, then they took a picture of the board and sent it to me. And I'm like, it's right there. And you have to look for the train time and the train number.
Right.
Don't fixate on the destination because, again, this train was finishing in Naples, but it was stopping in Florence where they were going to get off. So wanted to share that unrelated, but maybe timely tip for those coming to Italy. And I have another unrelated tip that I wanted to share relating to Pompeii. And this is a change because only starting last October do they issue tickets on a named basis in Pompeii. And so you have to go online and buy your tickets or hope that if you get there, at the ticket booth that they're still available. But it used to be that you could, show up to the tour or go on your own and you didn't have to do this. But similar to like what Rome has been encountering in Venice, ticket scalpers or tour operators would come in and buy like hundreds and thousands of all the tickets and then resell them. And so to prevent that, they're saying, no, you have to issue them in your name. And to do that, you have to go online and you have to have everybody's name and birth date. So they went on sale 2 weeks ago and they're selling all the way through June. And so last October, they were only selling 1 month at a time, but they opened it up for the entire summer. So if you're going to Pompeii this summer, I would, suggest everybody get online and buy your tickets in advance while they're still available.
Yeah. So you keeping up to date your clients, I assume, and they know all that, right?
They do. And actually, I sat down and bought 3 months worth of tickets for all of my clients on a named basis. So, but yes, it took me some time to get everything purchased, but we're set.
Wow. Okay. Thanks again, Tanya, for your tips. Very worth, I think, as usual. That I always enjoy them. And I think our listeners are too. And I just want to remind everyone that is listening that we have a Facebook page group called Experience Italy with Friends. And so I think we are at the end of our episode.
Yes, we are. And so wherever you are in the world, I hope you are enjoying the change of seasons. And for others in the Northern Hemisphere, enjoy everything coming to life with renewed energy. And for those celebrating Easter, Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. And we will hear you back in 2 weeks.
Arrivederci.
Arrivederci.
Ciao, ciao. We hope you've enjoyed Experience Italy with Friends. If you like the podcast, remember to follow us and leave a review letting us know what you found to be the most helpful. And if you want expert advice or assistance in creating your own immersive and authentic experience in Italy, visit us at www.amicivacations.com.